Welcome to the SBIDER Careers Podcast
with Ed Hill
and Laura Guzman.
We are discussing the career trajectories of SBIDER researchers and also those who carry out important work that enables and supports the research being conducted.
Today we're joined by Paul Brown, a systems administrator and scientific programmer in SBIDER. Paul is also involved in the bioinformatics research technology platform at the University of Warwick.
Join us for this episode as we discuss Paul's job role that involves the development of user-friendly, stable scientific software for data acquisition, analysis and modelling. Hi Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Hello, thank you for asking me.
For the research projects you are involved in, could you describe to the listeners your main commitments and duties? Are these fairly consistent across projects, or is it project dependent?
Well, my role is to work on a variety of different projects. I provide specialist software for modelling, data acquisition, analysis, and so on. And I also work on some sort of ongoing long-term software projects as part of a team of other developers as well. So then they're very diverse in nature, my projects as well. I get to work on a lot of different fields of biology, which is very interesting.
And is there a particular part of your job that you think the listeners would be particularly surprised by?
People are often surprised, I think, about how I came to do this, about my background, because I'm not a computer or an IT person at all. I'm a biologist by training. So I used to work in the lab. I have a degree and PhD in biology, and I got into computer modelling through lab work. I was working in a lab that was interested in modelling neural networks, and that's really how I got into the idea of mathematical biology, which wasn't such a big fit. When I did my degree, there was very little biology, very little maths discussed in biology. We did a little bit of statistics, basic t-tests and variance analysis and so on, how to analyse your data, but no one ever really talked about mathematical modelling. And so, it was back in the sort of early 2000s that I got interested in that through the lab work. And then I ended up moving to Warwick University, where I was employed as a software engineer as part of a group who were interested in producing software for running models of gene networks underlying circadian biology, and the software was specifically aimed at laboratory scientists, not at mathematicians. The idea was that the mathematicians would develop these big models, and then we would develop software that the scientists would be happy using. They could easily input their data, see the results, and then they could use that to inform experimental design. And that suited me really well, because having been a lab scientist myself, sort of bridging the gap between the two fields was very good, and that's how I started out really. Then I went from life sciences at Warwick to systems biology, and then on to SBIDER from there. And I've worked on a lot of different projects since then. In the last few years I've been heavily involved in the epidemiology side, which isn't something I'd ever come across before.
Thank you. That leads us to the next question, that it was about what is the path that you have to have this role in SBIDER, but now that you have explained this path very clearly, what were the key stages where you developed the interest in this type of work?
I think it was when I did this postdoc at the University of St Andrews. I worked in a lab my role was electrophysiology. We were interested in neural circuits in the spinal cord using frog embryos as a vertebrate model, and the lab head was producing these very complex models of how the neurons fit together to produce these characteristic output patterns, and both at the level of the network and also at the level of the individual cell, modelling ion channel kinetics. And so that's what really got me interested in mathematical modelling of biology. And then I was lucky enough to get this role in circadian biology at Warwick. So that allowed me to sort of bridge the gap between the lab work and experimental work. And so those are probably the two key points really. And then the third key point, I guess, was when SBIDER was formed, and I got to meet a lot of epidemiologists, and I got quite heavily involved in that. And what really appeals to me about the epidemiology is it's something that's obviously very beneficial very quickly. I mean, the first epidemiology project I worked on was a temporary 6-month thing, and we were expected to produce output that would be used to inform policy within about 3 months, which was, I thought was incredible.
So an aspect you've touched on there is how with your role is that you become involved in multiple different projects, and that is the research area. They could be quite disparate research areas as well, and the end users could also be quite distinct between them.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear your kind of experience in how you approach trying to combine these multiple responsibilities across projects, and if there was any particular projects you'd like to highlight in more detail.
Yeah, well, it's good to be involved in so many projects. Each day is very different. I switch between different things depending on what the immediate urgency is for my different projects. I mean, one interesting thing I haven't mentioned yet is what I'm doing with the bioinformatics RTP. We've got a big database called Enterobase. It's a database of basically bacteria that cause food poisoning. It's got hundreds of thousands of genomes in it from all over the world. It's been cited multiple times by researchers all over the world. We've just got funding to try and extend this, set up different distributions of it in some new labs, and also port it to a system that will do the same for plant pathogens. So that's a very exciting thing to be involved in. But it's not something I've written myself. It's been going for many years. It's something myself and some of my colleagues have been asked to sort of take forward and improve.
That's great, and that strongly highlights the collaborative aspects that seems like permeate throughout all these projects, as you are in each of these projects. It is a team effort across the board.
Yeah, I mean, through the bioinformatics RTP, I think we're involved in potentially 5 or 6 different departments as well.
In all these career paths that you have described and all these projects you've been involved, is there a skill set that you have developed that perhaps you originally had not envisaged needing?
Well, I think when I was working as a biologist, I perhaps didn't imagine I'd be working in a maths department one day. So I didn't do A-level maths. And I wish I had done today. It would have been very useful. I have learned a lot as I've gone along, but I think I'm a bit weak in some fields. But yeah, this is something I didn't envisage having to gain a lot of knowledge in.
And to our listeners interested in working within research, would there be one piece of advice that you would like them to take away that would be kind of associated with promoting positive working relationship between researchers and research support staff?
Well, I think involve research support staff at an earlier stage as possible. I think it's important to do that. Even at the sort of planning and grant writing stage, if you've got a research support person who's an expert in a particular field, it's good to involve them right from the start and say what's feasible, what's the best way to go about something, what funding do we need to do this. I think that really helps.
That's super, and I strongly endorse that advice as well. And with my own personal interaction with Paul on recent projects, it's having you involved from the early stages, I think, has helped us develop, say, user interfaces that have then been used through like study interviews, etc.
Yeah.
That is ongoing. That's helping us gather new data that can then be analysed.
Good to hear that. Yeah.
So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for giving all this explanation. It's good to know everyone in SBIDER.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking me.
Thank you all for listening to this episode of the SBIDER Careers Podcast.